Verse 25, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cleanse the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of extortion and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, that the outside of them may be clean also. You know, you clean the outside of the cup, but inside the cup is still dirty. You know, there's some people who think if I can just clean up my life and make some changes, turn over a new leaf, then everything will be better. And they attempt to clean up their life and change their behavior. And they think if I can clean up the outside, then that will make me clean on the inside. And if you've tried that, you know it doesn't work. Cleaning up your life on the outside doesn't change anything on the inside. The only way a person can have real lasting change is if they clean up the inside first, and only Jesus Christ can clean a person on the inside. Only Jesus Christ can cleanse a person's heart and mind and conscience and remove the guilt and shame and regret on the inside. Only Jesus Christ can free a person from their bondage to sin and the flesh. And what Jesus does is when you surrender your life to Jesus Christ and you're born again, He cleanses a person on the inside first, and He cleans them from the inside out. You can't be clean starting on the outside and you think, well, I'll clean the outside, it'll just work its way in and clean the inside. That doesn't work. Jesus comes, you give your life to Him, and He makes all things new, and He cleans you on the inside. He removes your sin. He gives you a new heart. He renews your mind. He cleans you on the inside, and then that works its way out, and it cleans up your life on the outside. For these religious leaders, they thought, well, if we just make the outside look clean, then everybody will think we're clean. But Jesus sees the inside. Look at verse 27. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly, but inside are full of dead men's bones and all uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Jesus knows what is in the heart of people. He sees the inside. He's never fooled by outward appearances. Other people might be fooled by outward appearances and this facade that we create on the outside, but Jesus is not fooled by that. You know, man looks on the outward, but God looks at the heart, and He knows what's going on in the heart. And he describes them here as whitewashed tombs, and what they would do in the weeks leading up to a feast like the Feast of Passover, which is taking place during this time. They would go out along the highways leading up to Jerusalem, and along the highways quite often there would be tombs or places where people are buried and kind of forgotten about, and they would go out there and they would paint those tombs white, or those burial sites white, because if you, as a Jewish person, if you happen to step on one of those graves, it made you ceremonially unclean for 7 days. And so if you're making this pilgrimage to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover feast, and maybe you've traveled from some other part of the Roman Empire, you've traveled for weeks to get there, and now as you're approaching the city of Jerusalem, you accidentally step on a tomb, and now you're unclean for 7 days, and you can't celebrate the Passover. You're going to miss it. You've made this long trip, and now you can't even participate in the Passover. So in the weeks leading up to the Passover, they would go out, they'd paint all of the tombs along the roads white. They would whitewash the tombs so that everybody would see them and know that they're there, so they could avoid them. And Jesus says, you're like whitewashed tombs. You appear beautiful outwardly, but inside, you're full of dead men's bones and all uncleanness. You know, outwardly you appear righteous, but inside you're full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Verse 29, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of the righteous. They actually built monuments to the Old Testament prophets during this time. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. You know, the Jewish people killed all the prophets that were sent to them. And here the religious leaders in Jesus' day, they kind of arrogantly said, well, if we lived in the days of our fathers, we would have received the prophets, we would have recognized them as prophets, we would have responded to their preaching, and we would have never killed them like our fathers did. He says in verse 31, therefore you are witnesses against yourselves that you are sons of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of your father's guilt. Their fathers killed the prophets. They're going to kill the Messiah. And here they think, we'd never do what our father, we'd never kill the prophets. So, we're not like that. Our hearts are not so hard that we would reject a prophet of God when God sends a prophet to us. They're going to kill the Messiah that was sent to them. He says in verse 33, serpents, brood of vipers. He calls them poisonous snakes. They're poisoning the people with their teaching. How can you escape the condemnation of hell? You know what Jesus is saying in verse 33 to those religious leaders in front of the big crowd? You're going to hell. You're going to hell. You're not going to escape the condemnation of hell.